Hi, my name is Leanza Hernandez, and I have a question for you all. Who makes up half the population, were granted the 19th Amendment, and have fought tooth and nail with the help of others to get where they are now? I'll give you guys some time to think, because I know that's a hard question to answer. You know what? I'm going to help you all out, and I'm going to make it multiple choice. Here we go. A, women. B, women. C, women. D, women. Or E, all of the above. Anyone? That's right. E, all of the above. Women today can get an education. They could work, they can vote, and they could own property without being questioned as to why or how. But prior to 1920, women could not do any one of those things. The only ones who worked, voted, and were able to participate in political events were men. Women stayed home to cook, clean, and raise the children. Now, not all states treated women the same. They all had different laws, but nonetheless, what they all had in common was suppressing women. Now, you're all probably wondering, well, who kicked off the campaign, if you will, for women? And her name was Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She and Lucretia Mott wanted to make a change. And what better way to brainstorm your ideas than to have a tea party, which they did. They both wanted to get other women involved. And when they did, they spoke about the social, civil, and religious rights of women. That small gathering became known as the Seneca Falls Convention. And it took place on July 19th and 20 in 1848. And over 300 people were at that gathering. Now, not only were women there, but there were a few men as well. One of them being Frederick Douglass, who was a former slave and an abolitionist. In the United States, we have something called the Declaration of Independence. Well, Elizabeth Cady made her own, and she named it the Declaration of Sentiments. And in there, she stated, "We hold the truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal." In her declaration, she spoke about women getting an education, having property ownership, child custody in the event of divorce, and ultimately the right to vote. They demanded a change, and with this convention, 12 resolutions were passed, and it was signed by 68 women, and believe it or not, 32 men. This convention was only the start of what was to come, especially humiliation. The newspaper had their way with this convention, but that did not stop women. This convention was only the beginning. It was a small fish in a very large ocean. A month later, a second convention was held in Rochester, and the Declaration of Sentiments grew to 107 new signatures. These two conventions started the women's rights movement, which eventually became known as women's suffrage. This was the start to decades of protesting. And finally, after years of hard work, on August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment was born, and women were granted the right to vote. While the fight for the 19th Amendment was going on, women were still doing groundbreaking things. In 1849, Elizabeth Blackwell became the first woman to graduate medical school, and she was practicing in the United States. In 1851, Sojourner Truth, who was a former slave, gave her most famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" That speech is very beautiful, and every time I read it, I get sentimental. If you have not read it, please do, because you won't regret it. In 1916, Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control clinic in the United States. She was tested many times, and even had to close a few times, but she was very persistent. And in 1921, she founded the American Birth Control League, which eventually turned into what we know now as Planned Parenthood. In 1917, Jeannette Rankin from Montana was sworn in as the first woman to be elected into Congress as the member of the House of Representatives. There were many women who did many life-changing things for not only themselves, but for the future little girls who had dreams of doing what they accomplished. Women today still go through many things, but we can't say thank you enough to our ancestors for fighting for what we have now. Women are beautiful and hardworking, And as you can tell by my shirt, I am proud to be a woman. Thank you.